He always exchanged words with everybody because it didn't matter what anybody was doing in and around the estate here and everywhere else. They all meant a lot to him, and he always took a very personal interest in everything that they were doing.
He always exchanged words with everybody because it didn't matter what anybody was doing in and around the estate here and everywhere else. They all meant a lot to him, and he always took a very personal interest in everything that they were doing. Sophie finally breaks her silence on Meghan, and it is absolutely savage. For years, the Duchess of Edinburgh played it cool, stayed diplomatic, smiled through the tension, and kept the royal family's dirty laundry buried behind palace walls. But not anymore. A bombshell Channel 5 documentary, explosive royal biographies, and insider accounts have peeled back the curtain. And what's underneath is years of rejection, fury, and receipts. This is Sophie's moment, and she is not holding back. The mentor offer that Meghan ghosted and why it still stings. To understand the significance of Sophie's silence breaking, it's essential to know what she actually offered Meghan Markle and how Meghan responded. A recent documentary titled Royal Peacemaker Sophie Duchess of Edinburgh, which aired on Channel 5 on May 16, 2026, highlights the supportive role Sophie played in helping Kate Middleton navigate her early years as a member of the royal family. Notably, it also reveals that Meghan allegedly declined a similar offer of guidance. This documentary is not merely a tribute. It provides a well-researched account of Sophie's remarkable rise within the monarchy and the challenges faced along the way. Meghan Markle's name is mentioned multiple times. Royal commentator Emily Andrews noted that Sophie approached both Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle, expressing her willingness to be a mentor. When she saw younger members marrying into the royal family, she was very happy to offer to be a mentor of sorts. Andrews stated, adding that Sophie had seen it all. This is an important point. Sophie didn't simply enter royal life without any experience. After marrying Prince Edward in 1999, she made her share of early mistakes, including a public relations misstep involving a tabloid sting. However, she emerged wiser, stronger, and more trusted than almost anyone else within the firm. She had valuable insights to share and was willing to provide Meghan with guidance for free. According to a royal insider who spoke to The Sun, Sophie and Meghan spent hours together discussing various topics. Meghan had many questions, and Sophie, understanding the difficulties of transitioning from a commoner to a royal, offered her advice freely. The insider noted Sophie found Meghan likable and engaging, and she told her she could call anytime she needed advice about dealing with some of the trickier royals. However, the insider expressed surprise when that turned out to be the last they heard from Meghan. After spending hours coaching Meghan, Sophie was essentially ghosted. Despite the deep conversation and the connection they shared, Meghan did not follow up. The insider also mentioned that it would have been nice to receive a return invitation to Frogmore Cottage, where Meghan was living with Harry, but none came. No phone call, no text, nothing. The documentary emphasizes a critical contrast. Sophie offered support early on, but not every new royal did. This contrast, with Kate accepting Sophie's support while Meghan did not, would ultimately define much of what followed. The Kate versus Meghan divide that Sophie's documentary makes brutally clear. If point 1 established a snub, this point addresses the ripple effect of that snub. How a Channel 5 production has laid it out for millions of viewers to see side by side in unflattering detail. The documentary Royal Peacemaker Sophie Duchess of Edinburgh focuses on Sophie's transition from her 1999 marriage to Prince Edward to assuming a more prominent role within the monarchy. It portrays her as someone younger royals can turn to when learning how the family operates. With Kate, this mentorship has worked beautifully. Royal correspondent Victoria Murphy described Sophie as a natural mentor for Kate in many ways, highlighting small but significant gestures. Sophie became a trusted guide for Kate, and their bond has publicly grown over the years. Imagine what that looks like in practice. Sophie and Kate walking side by side at state events. Sophie placing a steadying hand on Kate's back during challenging royal moments, and the two of them building a friendship that has become one of the most quietly powerful alliances inside Buckingham Palace. Kate listened, learned, and has by most accounts become one of the most effective working royals the monarchy has seen in a generation. This could be termed the Sophie effect. The documentary places particular emphasis on Sophie's relationship with Catherine, now the Princess of Wales, describing her as a shoulder to lean on as Catherine adjusted to her new role. Then the documentary shifts its focus to Meghan, and the tone noticeably changes. Emily Andrews mentioned that Sophie met Meghan a couple of times and told her, "Anything I can do, anything I can help with, let me know." Andrews also added that Sophie was surprised she was never invited back to Frogmore Cottage, where Harry and Meghan were living at the time. This is not a trivial social slight in the world of the British monarchy, where relationships, access, and trust are crucial. Being offered mentorship by someone as universally respected as Sophie and then ignoring that offer is a significant statement. Whether intentional or not, it conveyed something about Meghan's intentions to the institution, and it felt personal to Sophie. Former Press Secretary Elsa Anderson described the bond between Sophie and the late Queen, saying, "I think the late Queen saw Sophie as a safe pair of hands. She could always be relied upon. Sophie was a true confidant for the Queen, which is quite rare in the royal world. Therefore, this wasn't just any royal offering of help. It was from the Queen's most trusted confidant, the woman King Charles reportedly considers his secret weapon, and she was ignored." The documentary does not need to state this explicitly. It lets the contrasting relationships speak for themselves. Oprah who? The 8 words that expose the palace's true feelings about Meghan. Now we come to one of the most talked about moments in this entire saga. A moment in which Sophie herself participated, clearly indicating the firm's stance after Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey dropped like a nuclear bomb in March 2021. Here's the context. Meghan and Harry sat down with Oprah and made some of the most explosive allegations ever leveled against the British royal family. Claims of racism, being denied mental health support, isolation, and cruelty. It was an interview that shook the monarchy to its core and dominated global news for weeks. Shortly after, Sophie and Prince Edward gave their own interview. When they were asked about the Sussexes' explosive interview, Prince Edward responded with, "Oprah, who?" And Sophie laughed, saying, "What interview?" Their exchange consisted of just 8 words. 8 words that sent a clear message to the world. We are not engaging with this. We are not taking it seriously. And we are going to feign ignorance of one of the most famous women on the planet to make a point. And it was received as intended. The message resonated with royal watchers, the press, and importantly Omid Scobie, who made it a centerpiece of his controversial royal exposé, Endgame. Just 2 years later, in Endgame, Scobie referred to Sophie and Edward's interview, writing, "The comments about the world's most successful black woman and one of the biggest faces in entertainment made them seem stuffy or tiny-eared at best and casually bigoted at worst." He continued, "What may seem like a trivial episode by itself, Sophie's Oprah gaffe is yet another page to add to the history of recent screw-ups." Regardless of what you think about Scobie and his sympathies in the Sussex saga, his core observation is genuinely revealing. The remark "Oprah who" is not an accidental joke. It is a calculated display of indifference intended for a specific audience, namely the tabloids, palace loyalists, and the British establishment who wanted reassurance that those in power were dismissing the Sussexes' allegations. Sophie, the most diplomatic woman in the royal family, knew exactly what she was doing. Yet, she chose to proceed anyway. This tells you everything about how she truly felt about Meghan by 2021. 3 years after the ghosting, 2 years after the Megxit announcement, and months following the start of Harry and Meghan's Netflix series, which had begun to reshape public perception. Sophie's fury over being called casually bigoted and why she refused to stay silent. If the Oprah who moment was Sophie drawing a line in the sand, then Endgame was Omid Scobie stomping all over it. According to royal insiders, Sophie's reaction to this was far from gentle. When Omid Scobie's book Endgame was released, one senior royal member was reportedly very unhappy about remaining silent. Sources for The Sun claimed that Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, was furious with the allegations made by Scobie in the book. furious, not disappointed or mildly annoyed, but furious. It's easy to understand why. Sophie had spent years rebuilding her reputation after facing tabloid difficulties in the early 2000s. She had become one of the most trusted and respected working royals, following closely behind Charles and William. Elevated to the title of Duchess of Edinburgh, one of the most prestigious in the monarchy, she suddenly found herself portrayed as casually bigoted in a book by someone with documented ties to Harry and Meghan. Scobie also claimed that Sophie noticeably ignored Meghan outside Westminster Abbey during the late Queen Elizabeth II state funeral, suggesting that both Queen Camilla and Kate followed suit in ignoring the Duchess of Sussex. This accusation, if true, carries enormous weight. The Queen's funeral in September 2022 was arguably one of the most watched royal events of the decade. Every frame of footage was analyzed and every interaction scrutinized. For Scobie to assert in a published book that Sophie deliberately cold-shouldered Meghan during a moment of national mourning is a serious allegation. Sophie's team denied these claims, insisting that the Oprah moment was meant as a joke. However, rather than issuing a tearful statement, calling a press conference, or giving a tearful interview to clarify herself, Sophie took a different approach. She kept working. She became even more visible, taking on additional engagements, causes, and diplomatic missions. She allowed her record to speak louder than any defense ever could. According to insiders, this was precisely her strategy. Every time Sophie shows up and does her job quietly and effectively, without a Netflix deal or a memoir, it implicitly contrasts with the couple who allegedly inspired Scobie's book. The title promotion that was a polite public signal about Meghan, Sophie and Edward have become the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. A title change that is more than just a title change. This title was likely intended for Prince Harry and Meghan, but they stepped back from royal duties. The Edinburgh title has a rich history, and until recently, it belonged to Prince Philip. It would have been Harry and Meghan's title if they had chosen to stay. Instead, it has gone to Sophie and Edward. Reports say that Sophie is relieved she no longer has to curtsy to Meghan Markle. One friend commented that Sophie is glad to avoid showing respect to someone who has left royal duties and criticized the royal family. The word relieved indicates that curtsying to Meghan caused Sophie discomfort. The new title removes that obligation forever. Sophie is not shy about how significant this moment is. She became the Duchess in 2023 as part of her husband's birthday celebrations and mentioned it felt important because of its connection to the late Queen. When asked about increasing royal duties to fill the space left by Harry and Meghan, Sophie pointedly asked, "What did people think we were doing beforehand?" This shows that she and Edward have been quietly doing the necessary work for the royal family for years, even when no one noticed. The media suggested the royal family was in crisis, but Sophie's response makes it clear. They have always been present and committed to their roles. The documentary that said everything without Sophie saying a word. We have reached the present moment with the documentary Royal Peacemaker, which was released in May 2026. It brings years of context into a powerful view of the situation. This documentary is remarkable not just for what Sophie says, but for what it reveals about her and its implications for others. The documentary highlights how Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, supported Kate Middleton during her early days as a member of the royal family. Royal Peacemaker Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, traces her journey from newcomer to one of the royal family's key figures. The title Royal Peacemaker carries weight. In a monarchy facing public disputes over allegations, memoirs, and lawsuits, Sophie is celebrated for holding things together. It contrasts with those who chose to leave or speak out. The Channel 5 program follows Sophie's rise as a trusted guide for Kate Middleton, noting that Meghan Markle did not accept Sophie's help. This framing, viewed by millions, marks the conclusion of a long conversation. Sophie offered support. Meghan chose a different path, leading to a life in California with brand deals and a departure from the institution. In contrast, Sophie gained recognition and a reputation as a stabilizing force in the royal family. This story is echoed in Sean Smith's 2025 biography, Sophie Saving the Royal Family. It emphasizes that Sophie has become crucial to the monarchy because others have left. There's a significant detail. Shortly after Meghan Markle appeared in Geneva, Sophie spoke at the World Health Assembly as the global ambassador for the International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness. She addressed urgent issues about avoidable sight loss to health ministers and diplomats. This moment highlighted two different paths. One woman left to do good on her own terms, while the other stayed and worked for a global cause. Sophie didn't speak out during press conferences. Instead, she did it through a documentary, a promotion, brief comments, and her actions. This approach demonstrates her strength. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, has long been underestimated. She was never the flashiest royal or the one who made headlines with scandals. Now, she holds the Edinburgh title, has King Charles's trust, is friends with Kate, holds a global role, and has a documentary celebrating her as the one who kept the family united while others departed. If this is how Sophie breaks her silence, Meghan might want to rethink her choices. What do you think? Did Sophie handle this situation correctly? If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. There's more royal news to discuss.